You see, the enemy likes to bind us in these lies and speak lies over our hearts and our minds and say, you are this, you are that. But that's not who God created us to be. Who God created us to be is a child of God, holy and blameless above reproach. Someone who listens to him and follows him. I could go back to John 8:38 or 32, when he says, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I feel like too often people are listening to lies, and they're letting lies dictate to them what they're believing, and yet, instead of not being able to believe what they're believing something else that's not true. They're believing something that's false. And it's trapping them and tying them up. Your feelings don't determine reality. They determine how you perceive reality. Now, let me ask you this. Are your feelings real?
Yes.
Yes. They're very real. Do you know your feelings can be affected by multiple different things like hormones? They can be affected by your diet. They can be affected by how much sun did you get this week? And these are things we've covered in our series, The War Zone. Yes. But the point is, I'm going to have him get those bowls ready. But the point is that your feelings, though they may be real, what you're feeling is real, it may not be true. You ever thought about that before? Miss Jamie, you've been married before. Right? As somebody who's been married before, right?
I'm married now.
That's what I meant. I'm so sorry. You are currently married. You know what marriage is like. Let me just take my foot, put it in my mouth. So Miss Jamie, she's married back there. She can attest. What I'm about to say is going to be very true. And if it's not, tell me I'm not wrong. But this person that I love so dearly, and I set a commitment and a covenant to, right? They say something to me, and I'm like, how could you, rude person? You're being so rude. And you know what? That's not at all how they meant it. And it's not until like 45 minutes later that we're actually going back and talking about it. And she's like, man, I just had a really rough day. And I think I responded incorrectly. And like how that came out was not the right way. And I'm like, that actually wasn't how I thought you were meaning it at all.
You misinterpreted.
Yeah. Has anybody here ever been misinterpreted? You ever thought your friend said one thing when they were actually saying the opposite?
Yes.
Like, you're like, they were so rude to me. And it's like, actually, they were trying to be really kind. Or maybe they said something really kind and they were actually being really rude. Right? Y'all have seen that before, right?
Yes. Multiple times.
So, are our feelings always reality? Is it possible that our feelings could be misguided?
100%.
Yeah. This is why the enemy attacks our identity. Because our identity is what shapes our feelings and our emotions. There's another verse that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. The things you think, the thoughts you allow yourself to ponder and consider and sit and rest on and think about over and over again, they shape your brain. They shape the way that you begin to perceive life. If you're told your whole life that you're a victim, that you'll never amount to anything, that you're worthless, and you don't have any ability to change anything, and you're powerless, do you think you're going to live life with hope? No. If you're told you're never going to amount to anything, does that fill you with hope, or does that fill you with despair? And when somebody treats you less than perfect, do you think, oh my gosh, they hate me too?
Sometimes.
Right? If you're viewing life from that point, you will. But if you're viewing life from a perspective of, you know what? If God is for me, who can be against me? Then even when the person treats you really badly, you go, I can still live the right way. I'm not affected by that person because I know who I am in God. It's a challenging thing. It's hard because our feelings are very real and they feel strong. But if we base our life off of our feelings, we're always going to be misguided. I'm a really big Star Wars fan. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I love Star Wars, and I wanted to use a clip from Star Wars, but every single one I found was always about, Luke, trust your feelings. Luke, use your feelings. And I was like, this is the opposite of what I'm trying to convey. Right?
Type in that doesn't say feelings.
I actually was going to use a clip from the end scene where at the very end of episode 6, Emperor Palpatine is like, good, give in to your feelings. Let the hate flow through you and make you strong. And Luke Skywalker's like, the real decision is, are you going to allow your feelings to dictate how you respond to life? Or are you going to live your life centered on truth? See, every person in this room gets to make this decision. Are you going to base your life on how things feel? Or are you going to let God define you? Are you going to define yourself based on how you're feeling and the things that happen to you and always in a reactive, responsive tone? Because mistakes are happen when we respond to things. But when we live from a place of identity, we live right. Your feelings, those things will change. One day, you feel like you hate the world and everyone should burn. And the next day, you're like, you know what? These people aren't that bad. All right, I want all of you guys to close your eyes while Donovan brings us out and gets things prepared. Everyone close your eyes. I'm going to ask you a question. And I want you to ponder this question in your heart. What have my feelings been telling me about who I am? But what does God say about who I am? What have my feelings been saying that I am, that I should be, that I should accomplish, that I'm a failure? What are my feelings saying to me? And once you have that, I want you to ask yourself, what is God saying about me? What does God say about who I am? You are not your mistakes. You are not your struggles. You are not your confusion. You are who God says you are. He speaks his identity over you. There's verse after verse after verse about who God says you can be. I want to encourage you guys, truth is what defines you. Not your feelings. God's word. He's already written 66 books about who he says you are. And he says you're loved.